Life Audio.
Thank you for listening to Your Daily Bible Verse, the podcast that examines one verse each day to learn more about God and His will for our lives. I'm your host, Kyle Norman. After a brief message from one of our sponsors, we will continue with today's verse.
There's no way around it. When it comes to healthcare, people are really frustrated with how much it costs and how to pay for it. The usual ways we've been doing this have only gotten more expensive, more complicated, and honestly, just aggravating. And that's why Medishare is such a welcome relief. It's called healthcare sharing. It's different and it works. More than 1 million Americans are now doing this, and Medishare has been a great option for more than 30 years. So really, you could save thousands of dollars a year on your healthcare and be happy. Imagine that. If you've heard about it and you want to know more, there are two easy options. Go to Medishare.com/believe. That's Medishare.com/believe, or just grab your phone and send a text. You'll get the info, which could really help you and your family out. Text the word believe to 70246 to get the facts. Text BELIEVE to 70246 and you'll get the link. That's BELIEVE to 70246.
Americans have a big healthcare problem. Over 100 million citizens carry medical debt while paying for overpriced and complicated health insurance. As Christians, we don't have to pay for a broken system. Christian Healthcare Ministries is an alternative to health insurance at half the cost. Plus, you can enroll at any time. Stand up to health insurance with a biblical solution. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
Today's verse can be found in Matthew chapter 17, verse 20. Jesus said, "Do you have faith as small as a mustard seed? You can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." When I was 10, I remember hearing this verse for the first time. We lived in the quaint oceanside town of Sydney, British Columbia. On a clear summer's day, you could look out across the strait and see Mount Baker looming over the horizon. Having heard the promise of Jesus, I took it to heart. I distinctly remember focusing my gaze on Mount Baker, demanding that it move itself into the Pacific Ocean. Now, before you chuckle, let me say, my logic was sound. Jesus said if I had faith, I could move mountains. And I had faith. I believed in Jesus. I believed in His word. Ergo, Baker, start moving. Luckily, Jesus did not see fit to acquiesce to my request. When Jesus makes this promise, we often assume that He's calling the disciples to have more faith than they do. In Luke's version of this conversation, this promise is made directly after the disciples ask Jesus to increase their faith. It seems quite evident. The perpetually dim-witted and confused disciples clearly have a lack of faith, a faith smaller than the smallest of seeds. And so Jesus is really telling the disciples to make their faith as big as a mustard seed. And this is often how we speak about our faith journey. We often speak about faith through the language of growth. We will talk about someone growing in faith. Another person is described as having great faith, or we might cry right along with the disciples and ask for an increase in our faith. The point is, the more faith we have, well, the bigger miracles we can perform. Or so we assume. But I don't believe that's what Jesus means at all. In calling for a mustard seed-sized faith, Jesus isn't asking for our faith to be big or to increase in size. If so, why would Jesus choose one of the smallest of seeds known at the time as an example of this? Wouldn't Jesus say something like, if you had faith as large as a boulder, you could move mountains? This would make his point quite clear. The disciples were to work their faith like a muscle and thereby grow their potential for faithful action. But that's not what Jesus is getting at here. Jesus doesn't say our faith is to be as big as a mustard seed, but as small as a mustard seed. Jesus asks us to have a small faith. It is when we have a small faith that we recognize that we can never ask mountains to move on our own strength. As much as I believed in Jesus' words when I was 10, I didn't understand them. The grand things of faith are always beyond our capacity. We can never move mountains or mulberry bushes by ourselves. In each moment of our lives, we are always in need of the strength, the power, and the guidance of our Lord. Small faith requires a dependent openness before God. Small faith calls us to yield ourselves to the Spirit and allow the work of God to occur in us and through us. Big faith often keeps our eyes focused on ourselves, whereas small faith keeps our focus on Jesus and thereby paves the way for miracles. Like the disciples, when we strive for a big, robust, full-bodied faith, we often get in our own way. We walk out of step with the Spirit, or we develop beliefs contrary to the gracious love of Jesus. We might believe that healing occurs as a response to the bigness of our faith. And if we are not healed, or if we don't see the result in our prayer, well, it's because our faith wasn't big enough. And so we condemn ourselves with cries of, try harder, be better, or do more. Have you ever uncovered this in your life? Have you spent time trying to increase the size of your faith, only to find yourself getting spiritually exhausted? After all, how big is big enough? And if the answer to that question is, well, a mustard seed, then aren't we led to the conclusion that our faith, like the disciples, is ultimately non-existent? And so, instead of trying to make your faith large, what if you made it small? What if you stopped striving for more and allowed yourself to receive the presence and the power of Jesus in your life? Faith isn't something we produce. It's a gift that we receive in the presence of our Lord. Faith is about responding to the love and the grace of Jesus. And so what if you stop trying to produce something and allow Jesus to produce something in you? It is only when we allow ourselves and our faith to be small that we begin to experience the great and mighty work of God.
At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than money. It's a way to support the people, causes, and community you love, because helping you put your faith into action is at the heart of what we do. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.